Dad's good for nothing but signing checks. My daughter, Melanie, said loudly, and her friend's giggles fluttered around the table. An awkward hush dropped in its wake. Her husband, Chad, hurried to top off the wine, trying to plaster over the gap. She's just kidding, Arthur, he said, without meeting my eyes. I said nothing. I looked at my hands, the hands that had poured the footings and raised the frame of the very house they were sitting in. That night, my son-in-law came to me. We need to refinance the house, he said. Just need your signature. I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw it plain. I wasn't a father. I was a quarry. And they'd mined me down to the last vein of stone. What they didn't know was that beneath that rock, there wasn't soft earth, there was dynamite. I bet 99% of you will hear this sigh and scroll past without clicking like or subscribe, even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you, and where are you listening? The air smelled like the end of summer's sweet-cut grass, coals going to ash, and success. At least, that's what my son-in-law, Chad, wanted everyone to believe. I stood alone beside the Weber Summit, a gleaming stainless steel monster I'd given them for Christmas. It has more knobs and gauges than the cockpit of a small plane. Chad griped about how hard it was to control the heat, as if the 3-gram machine were at fault and not the man turning the dials. He didn't know I sold off my old Swiss watch's quiet companions over decades just to buy it. A small detail, a shard I kept to myself. From where I stood, I could see the whole backyard, a perfectly staged play. My daughter, Melanie, drifted among the guests, her summer dress fluttering, her smile bright and rehearsed. Chad held court at the center, a glass of dark red in his hand, telling some story that set the crowd laughing. Their laughter fizzed like champagne, but if you listen the way I do, you could hear a sour note underneath the sound people make when they're trying too hard to prove they're having a wonderful time. Then Chad raised his glass. A toast, he boomed, to vision and hard work. The chorus came back on cue. To vision. I flipped a steak. Smoke veiled my face for a beat. The bottle in Chad's hand was a 2010 Barolo. My birthday gift. Vision, I thought, tasting the bitter in my mouth. I wondered if his vision included the panic 2 a.m. call 6 months ago, and the quiet way I pulled a quarter of my 401 to bail out his smart business decision as it circled the drain. Probably not. Details like that spoil a good story. Dad's hiding in the kitchen corner again, Melanie called, teasing. She was talking to a young couple I hadn't met. That's my dad. He can build a house from the footing to the ridge, but don't ask him how to use the new TV remote. Absolutely hopeless. Warm, friendly laughter rolled across the yard. I smiled and nodded. Over their shoulders, I saw Mrs. Gable next door, widowed, about my age, snipping at her roses. She looked at me, not with the cheer of a neighbor enjoying a party, but with a soft, sympathetic gaze, almost pity. That's when I understood. I wasn't just a father. In this production, I'd been cast as a supporting character, the out-of-date, lovable, harmless old man, a useful prop good for perfect stakes, and a signature when needed. Melanie floated my way. She's beautiful, my girl. She has Margaret's eyes, but not her smile. Margaret's smile could warm a room. Melanie's only lights the surface. She hugged me quickly. Smells amazing, Dad. Her hug was nearly weightless, a blend of expensive perfume and a task checked off visit with the old man. It had the rigidity of a house of cards, neat, fragile, empty. I patted her back. The party rolled on. People ate, laughed, clinked glasses. I kept playing my part, flip, smile, nod. I was part of the scenery, like the old oak in the corner of the yard. Big, steady, and taken for granted. As the sun slid down and the first guest headed out, Chad came over. His face wore that quick mix of mock intimacy and car salesman calculation. Arthur, he began. He only uses my name when he wants something. Got a minute? We stepped a little away from the crowd, by the rhododendrons Margaret planted. Great party, I said. Thanks. Mel did everything. He flicked it off like the party's success was a minor inconvenience. Listen, I've got something I want your take on. An opportunity. Once in a lifetime. I waited. I've heard those before. They usually come with a number containing a lot of zeros. Commercial real estate, he said, eyes bright. Prime location, massive upside. but we need seed capital. He paused, drew a breath. Mel and I have talked. We're thinking of refinancing the house. The house. The one I designed for them. The one I shepherded into being. Made sure every nail was straight and every joint tight. The house I helped with Margaret's inheritance so they could start life without the millstone of debt. We just need one more guarantor signature to get the best rate. He rushed on like it was a trivial formality. With your credit, the bank won't blink. I looked at Chad. His face shone with excitement and greed, a hard combination to look at. He wasn't just ungrateful. He didn't see me anymore. He saw a tool, a resource, a stack of credit scores to be leveraged. They didn't want to build something of their own. They wanted to strip my foundation to add a penthouse to their castle in the air. You don't fix a crack by shouting at it. You study the foundation. And in that moment, it was clear. The family's footing was badly fractured. I didn't get angry. Anger would have been a waste of energy. A cold calm settled over me. Hope the stubborn, clinging instinct of a father finally died. And in its place, something else took root. Intent. I nodded slowly. Let me think about it, I said, even. Relief washed over Chad's face. Fantastic! I knew you'd see the potential. I would. He clapped my shoulder and strode back to the last of the guests, a winter's grin spreading across his mouth. I stood there alone. I turned to the grill, the heat licking my face. But I wasn't looking at the embers. I was looking at the house behind them, the lines, the corners, the slab I'd poured. And for the first time, I didn't see a home. I saw a structure due for a structural survey, a blueprint that needed redrawing, and I knew exactly where to start. The morning after the barbecue, I didn't call Chad. Hurry is the enemy of accuracy. Instead, I brewed a pot of black coffee, sat in my study, and rang Frank Miller. Frank's been my accountant for 40 years, a man who can see the truth behind pretty numbers. He's on the verge of retirement, which means he doesn't owe loyalty to anyone but old friends. Frank, I began casually, after asking about his wife's arthritis, I need your take on something. I've been hearing about a private commercial real estate fund. You know anything about a firm called Apex Holdings? There was a short silence on the line. Not the kind you get when someone's looking something up, the kind you get when a man is choosing his words. Apex Holdings, Frank repeated, even-toned. That Chad Mills's outfit your son-in-law? That's the one. Arthur, he said, lowering his voice. You're not thinking of putting money into that, are you? I'm considering it, I lied smoothly. He says it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Frank sighed, a tired sound over the wire. The only opportunity there is the chance to lose every dime. Listen, for the sake of our friendship, Apex isn't a rising ship. It's taking on water. They owe 6 figures to suppliers, and I'm hearing the IRS has started sniffing around their creative statements. That once-in-a-lifetime he's selling you is a last-ditch cash grab before the whole thing caves in. I closed my eyes. The first domino had fallen. Frank's words didn't shock me. They confirmed what a builder's gut had already told me. The place looked glossy, but the foundation was rotten. When Frank's email came, the numbers didn't look like a company in trouble. They looked like a facade with the plumbing and wiring chewed to threads. It just needed a spark. Thanks, Frank, I said. You've helped a lot. Be careful, Arthur, he warned. Desperate men do crazy things. My next call was to Bill Peterson. Bill owns one of the biggest lumber outfits in the state. I helped him land his first big contract 30 years ago. In construction, loyalty is like reinforced concrete. It takes time to cure, but once it sets, it's hard to break. Bill, it's Arthur Vance, I said. How are you holding up? Arthur, good to hear your voice. Been too long. Likewise. Quick question. Have you supplied any materials lately for a Chap Mills project? My son-in-law. An office park up north? Another pause, this one with a color of embarrassment. Yeah, Arthur, Bill said, hesitant. In fact, that's why we extended him credit. He mentioned you were advising the project. Said you were behind it. We figured with your name on it, it couldn't be a bad bet. My blood went cold. The bastard. It wasn't just my money he was. After he was spending something dearer, my name. The reputation I laid brick by brick, handshake by handshake. He turned my name into a guarantee without my consent. Chad's words were like, a bad set of plans looks fine on paper, but once you start measuring, nothing lines up. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my study, staring into a blank screen. The anger wasn't simmering anymore. It was a cold flame burning steady in my chest. I was angry at Chad, but I was angry at myself too. How had I let it go this far? How blind can a father's love be? At 1:17 a.m., an email arrived. No subject line. The sender was a nonsense address, a jumble of letters and numbers. I almost deleted it, thinking spam. Something stopped me. Inside, no message. Just a single attachment, a scanned PDF of a credit card statement. Company American Express, card holder, Chadwick Mills. Hey, I skimmed the charges. Steakhouse dinners, 4 seasons, overnights, bottles of wine that could cover a month's rent for a family. The waste was staggering. And then I saw it. A recurring charge on the first of every month. Bright Horizons Childcare Wilmington branch. Wilmington, a dull little city 2 hours away, known for nothing. Why would Chad have a monthly charge there? Below it, another monthly transfer, Zelle. Recipient, S. Jennings. Benengers, I sat in the midnight quiet and felt something break inside me. This wasn't a hairline crack in a business plan. This was a fracture down the center of my family. A fault line my daughter, Melanie, was living right on top of, without a clue. The hurt was sharp, a sudden stab. My girl had chosen wrong. She staked everything on a man whose footing was weaker than a sandcastle, and the storm was coming. Pain gave way to something else, a cold clarity. This was no longer about money, ingratitude, or a borrowed reputation. This was an attack on the foundation of the family I built. I stood, went to the bookshelf, and pulled down an old leather ledger. I'd used it for years to track jobs, material costs, man hours, subs. I opened to a clean page. At the top, I wrote a new title, The Mills Project. Under it, I began to outline the work, not with a draftsman's pencil, but with an executioner's pen. Verify financials frank. Gather evidence of reputational abuse, Bill and other suppliers. Identify S. Jennings and the Wilmington connection. Draft the legal strategy. This wasn't a family matter to be soothed with feelings. This was a failed structure that needed a controlled demolition before it pancaked and buried everyone under it. And I, Arthur Vance, was the architect drawing up that demolition plan. I called Melanie on Tuesday. Thursday, 7 p.m., I said, in a tone that didn't invite debate. I want to talk to both of you about Chad's proposal. Oh, sure, of course, Melanie chirped. Let me see if Chad's. 7, I repeated, in my study. Then I hung up. I didn't meet them in the living room with its family photos and cozy lighting. I met them in my study, a room that smelled of oak, leather, and old paper, where I'd signed contracts worth millions. This wasn't a family chat. It was a negotiation. When they arrived, I was already seated behind my mahogany desk. In front of me, 3 neat folders. One for me, one for Melanie, one for Chad. Thanks for coming, I began, calm and in control. Chad sat with an easy confidence, as if he were about to pitch a soft-hearted investor. Melanie looked uneasy. Maybe she felt the unusual gravity of the room. I've reviewed your proposal, Chad, I said, an ambitious plan. But before we talk about the future, I think we need to look at last quarter to get the full picture. I slid 2 folders across the desk. Go ahead. Chad opened his, and the smile tightened. Inside was the financial summary Frank had prepared for me. Cold, unforgiving numbers. Liabilities, negative cash flow, paper profits with no cash. I didn't say, you're lying. I said, Chad, page 2. Accounts receivable. That's a sizable number. Yet at the barbecue, you told me all your major clients had paid. Help me reconcile the revenue projections you've been pitching with the actuals I'm looking at here. Amorously, his confidence began to hairline crack. Right, that's mostly some supply chain delays. Macro headwinds. A couple partners not honoring timelines. He launched into a fog of business cliches, trying to mist over the truth. Dad, Melanie cut in protective. Chad's working really hard. It's a tough cycle for everyone. I looked at my daughter. She wasn't defending her husband. She was defending the life she believed she had. I didn't answer her. I turned a page in my own folder. All right, I said evenly. Let's set cash flow aside. Let's talk strategic partnerships. I slid a second, thinner packet across. Inside were copies of invoices from Bill Peterson's company and 2 other suppliers. Chad's name sat on each, beside credit terms, a handwritten note, approved on the strength of Arthur Vance. I looked straight at Melanie, ignoring Chad. Did you know about this, Mel? About Chad using my name to secure trade credit? Was that a joint decision? I'd forced her to choose a side. The confusion on Melanie's face hardened into anger. But it wasn't aimed at Chad. It was aimed at me. What are you doing? She snapped, voice trembling. You went snooping behind our backs? Are you trying to sabotage my marriage? I'm doing due diligence, I said, cool as steel. Something I should have done a long time ago. Chad saw an exit ramp. Exactly, Arthur. You're overstepping. This is our business. I let them vent. I let their outrage fill the room. When they finally ran out of words, I didn't offer any of my own. I simply pushed the third folder the thinnest across the desk. It held a single page, a travel expense printout from Chad's company Amex for the past 6 months. I'd highlighted one line. These are Chad's travel costs, I said, my voice dropping a register. Plenty of business trips. I'm glad to see you working so hard. But here's something odd. You seem to have a lot of meetings in Wilmington. Small town. I've never heard of it in our industry. Must be a very important and very discreet partner. I didn't mention the child. I didn't say S. Jennings. I planted a seed, a question with no easy answer. Melanie stared at the page. I watched her eyes skim the dates, the hotel charges, the restaurants. Her face set. For the first time all evening, there was a brief silence before the anger, a hairline fracture in the wall of loyalty. I don't understand, she murmured, and the edge had slipped from her voice. I stood signal enough that the meeting was over. I won't be making any decision about the second mortgage today, I said, in the cadence of a chairman ending a hard session. I wanted all the data on the table. Clearly, we have issues to resolve before we can discuss new ventures. And if you're afraid and not, I looked directly at Melanie. Go home and workshop your next strategy with your husband. Let me know when you two have a more viable business plan. I'd put the ball back in her court. I'd handed her the truth, wrapped in questions. What she did with it was up to her. They left in silence. No accusations now, only a dense, heavy tension. When the study door clicked shut, I didn't feel victorious. I felt bone-tired. I finished the demolition drawings, but pressing the plunger, triggering the final collapse has always been the hardest part. The silence in their Audi on the drive home wasn't peaceful. It was weighted thick with unsaid accusations. The air felt so dense Melanie could hardly breathe. Your father, Chad finally broke the quiet, contempt riding his voice. He's always like this. A dictator. He can't stand me succeeding without his permission. I know, Melanie echoed automatically. He's trying to undermine us. Unbelievable. A got to laugh. She said the words. Her mouth formed them. But in her head, another word kept tolling like a warped echo. Wilmington. 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 Why Wilmington? That night, for the first time in years, Melanie couldn't sleep. She lay beside Chad, listening to his even breathing, and felt a cold distance open up between them. The man she'd built her life around had turned strange. Her father's question hadn't been an accusation. It had been a key, and had swung open a door in her mind she'd been forcing shut for a long time. Her blindness hadn't been stupidity. It had been fear. Fear that, if the illusion cracked, she'd lose everything status. The house, the friends, the carefully curated family myth she'd been tending on Instagram. Her anger at her father was a defense mechanism. She hadn't been protecting her husband. She'd been protecting the life she believed she had. At 3 in the morning, she slipped out of bed. Her heart thudded in her chest. In the dressing room, Chad's phone sat charging on the vanity. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. It was an invasion, a betrayal, but suspicion was worse. The passcode. She tried his birthday. No. Their wedding date. No. Then she tried a string of numbers she spent years trying to forget the birth date of their first child, the one they lost. Beep, the screen unlocked. A chill ran down her spine. He had used their shared tragedy to guard his private secrets. She didn't know exactly what she was hunting. Flirty texts? Secret calendars? She opened messages and scrolled past work threads. And there it was, a conversation with someone named Sarah Jennings. Months of it. Did you send this month yet? He needs new shoes. Sent. Don't start. Are you coming for his birthday, Chad? He keeps asking about you. Busy. She scrolled higher, nausea rising. Then she found the photos, not of another woman. Worse, a child. A boy of about 5, grinning wide, missing a front tooth. A boy with Chad's blonde hair and blue eyes. Her husband's eyes. Melanie's world didn't explode. It went soundless. The rug yanked from under her, and beneath it nothing but a drop. In the morning, she didn't scream. The anger was too large to fit inside a voice. She made coffee. She toasted bread. When Chad shuffled into the kitchen, sleepy and unsuspecting, she was already at the table. She set the phone on the marble. The boy's photo filled the screen. Who is the boy, Chad? She asked, her voice flat. Color drained from Chad's face. He looked at the phone, then at her, mouth opening and closing. The swagger, the easy self-assurance gone. Only raw panic remained. At last he confessed. The words rushed out like a breached dam. A mistake from years ago, before he met her. He hadn't wanted to hurt her. He'd been afraid to lose her. He'd do anything. And then the manipulation began. This is your father's fault, he cried. The tears so convincing he might have believed them himself. He did this. He wants to split us up. He's jealous of what we have. Part of Melanie wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. Blaming her father will be easier. It will let her glue the shards of her world back together. Hairline, cracks, and all. But the lie was too big. Like trying to hide a structural fracture with a fresh coat of paint. She didn't throw Chad out. She didn't hurl anything. She simply stood, walked to the bedroom, and shut the door. She sat on the edge of the bed in the room her father had helped design, staring out at the garden her mother had planted, and understood she hadn't only been deceived, she'd been complicit in deceiving herself. She had chosen not to see. That evening, she called her father. She didn't cry. Her voice was steady and hollow. You knew, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Arthur answered. How long? Long enough. A long silence. What am I supposed to do now, Dad? She whispered, and for the first time in years, she sounded like his little girl, lost in a world too big and too complicated. Arthur didn't answer right away. When he did, there was no triumph in him, only a deep, tired sorrow. You do what you have to do, Mel. You stand on your own feet. The foundation's still there. You just have to decide what you want to rebuild on it. He's on and the mark first. Melanie hung up. She knew her marriage was over. But she also knew a different fight had just begun, the fight to reclaim herself. An ice wall had risen inside their house. And this time, no coat of paint would ever cover it. After Melanie's call, I did nothing for 3 days. I let silence and the truth have time to do their work. I knew that inside that house, another fight was already underway. One I didn't need to join. Chad's empire was a house of cards. Impressive from a distance, but built on debt and illusion. You don't need a sledgehammer to bring that down. You just pull the right card. On Monday morning, I called my attorney. Start, I said. What followed wasn't a noisy lawsuit. It was a series of quiet letters. The first, to the bank, was a formal legal notice. As a co-signing guarantor, I was exercising my right to withdraw my name from all current business loans and lines of credit for Apex Holdings, effective immediately. The contracts allowed it upon evidence of financial impropriety, and the documents Frank had supplied were more than enough. The first key card slid free. The second letter was subtler. It went to the board of the neighborhood HOA, where Chad had been polishing his image as a successful entrepreneur. In polite but firm language, it stated that any past or future use of the name, likeness, or reputation of Arthur Vance in connection with projects led by Mr. Chadwick Mills was unauthorized. It gently suggested that any such association be reconsidered. Not an accusation, a warning. A way of saying, this ship is no longer seaworthy. The dominoes started falling faster than I expected. After receiving a copy, Bill Peterson immediately demanded payment in full. Other suppliers followed. The bank, with my guarantee gone, froze Apex's credit line and called for an emergency meeting. The partners Chad loved to brag about suddenly stopped returning calls. The little kingdom built on my name evaporated the moment my name was removed. On Friday, Chad called me. I'd been waiting for that call. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. "What did you do?" he hissed. All charm and swagger gone, nothing left but raw panic. "You ruined me. You ruined everything." I listened, calm, while he ranted accusations, vague threats, the useless fury of a man watching his building implode into its own dust cloud. When he finally ran out of breath, I didn't argue. I didn't bring up the lies, the child, the way he traded on my trust. I said one thing, my voice free of anger, carrying only the finality of a self-evident fact. "A foundation built on lies can't stand, Chad," I said. "I taught you that about houses. Shame you didn't apply it to your life." I hung up. I blocked his number. Conversation over. I didn't feel triumphant. Not a shred of gloating, only a profound relief, as if a weight I'd carried for years had finally been set down. I had taken back control of my name and my life. I had cleaned up a mess. A few weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, I went for a drive. I had no destination in mind, but the car carried me past Melanie's old neighborhood. I slowed as I passed the house. There was a sign on the lawn, not the realtor's placard. The bank's code, red slab, foreclosure. The grass had gone shaggy. A couple of newspapers still sat in plastic sleeves on the stoop. The place looked hollowed out, abandoned like a shell after the life inside has moved on. I didn't stop. I felt neither joy nor sorrow, only the quiet of a hard job finished, a flawed structure taken down in a controlled way. In the rear view, the house shrank and disappeared as I turned the corner. It felt like an old chapter closing. Ahead, the road opened up, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't know exactly where I was going. Strangely enough, that felt wonderful. Their house had never been this quiet. It used to throng with sound jazz drifting from the Sonos, Chad's animated phone calls, friends dropping by on weekends. Now there was only silence. A heavy, airless silence like the air in a mausoleum. With Melanie and Chad moving through the wide hallways like two ghosts who merely pass each other. Dinner played out wordlessly, the only noise the shrill clink of knife on china. In the king-size bed, a cold emptiness stretched between them, each sunk in private reservoirs of resentment and fear. Melanie began to take inventory of her life. She looked at the Chanel bag on the chair, the Cartier bracelet at her wrist, and for the first time wondered, how much of this is actually mine? The answer scared her. Chad tried God, he tried. An absurdly large bouquet of roses, a hastily booked surprise trip to Hawaii. But the gestures were cheap patches slapped over a crumbling wall. When Melanie looked into his eyes, she saw only panic. He wasn't trying to win her back, he was trying to save himself. She felt paralyzed, suspended in the quiet, waiting for something that would force her hand. Elsewhere in the city, Arthur Vance did nothing. He gave the silence a week to do its work, knowing it would fill that house by itself with paranoia and dread. On Monday morning, a letter went out from his attorney's office. Not a bomb, just a snap of the fingers. It said simply, Arthur Vance, as co-signing guarantor, was invoking Section 7, Paragraph B, to withdraw his name from Apex Holdings loans. Nothing illegal. He was merely reclaiming his signature. The first domino. Right on schedule, Wednesday the bank called Chad. Without Arthur's solid guarantee, they re-underwrote the loan and panicked. They gave him 30 days. Find a new guarantor or post additional collateral. The timer had started. Chad didn't tell Melanie, admit that her father had yanked away his life raft. No, pride was his fatal flaw. He still believed he could wriggle out of this on his own. He launched into a frenzy of calls, hunting for an exit, never grasping that in this world. Without Arthur Vance behind him, the name Chadwick Mills wasn't worth much at all, and Arthur knew all of it. Frank, the old accountant friend, kept him updated. Arthur sat in his study, drank Earl Grey, and read a book on Roman architecture. He felt no thrill, no gloating, only a cool stillness. He had designed a structure, calculated the load-bearing points, and set the first charge exactly where it needed to go. Now he would wait for it to blow. Time is a weapon, and Arthur had all the time in the world. Chad, on the other hand, had 29 days. I bet 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past without clicking. Like or subscribe, even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you? And where are you listening? Day 30 landed on a Saturday night. It was also the evening of Brookfield Country Club's annual fall fundraiser gala, the neighborhood's crown jewel social event. I knew they'd be there. For Melanie and Chad, missing a night like that would be worse than bankruptcy. It would mean becoming invisible. I didn't go. I stayed home with a book and a glass of scotch. But I'd already placed my actors. Frank, my accountant friend, was there, my eyes and ears. My attorney, Tom, sat at his office, waiting for my signal. At the club, Melanie and Chad hit their marks. Melanie, in emerald silk, smiling brilliantly, arm looped through her husband's. Chad, in a tux, all easy power, shaking hands, laughing on cue. Look closer, though, and you could see the sweat beading at his hairline and the way his gaze kept flicking to his phone. It was the final day of his deadline. He was standing at the lip of the cliff. At exactly 8 o'clock, as guests took their seats, I texted Tom. Now. 2 emails went out almost simultaneously. The first, from Tom's office to the bank, was a crisp reply to their request. Upon review, we confirm Mr. Arthur Vance will not provide any guarantee for Apex Holdings. If. The second, also from Tom's office, went to Mrs. Davenport, the gala chair. Polite, professional. Dear Mrs. Davenport, regrettably, due to unforeseen circumstances, the $50,000 charitable pledge previously promised by the Vance family cannot be made at this time. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience. I understood something about people like Chad and Melanie. Social humiliation hurts more than insolvency. I turned a private cash problem into a public event. I cracked their brand. The first bomb detonated in Chad's pocket. His phone buzzed with a message from the bank. He read it and, Frank told me later, all the blood drained from his face. Account freeze notice, covenant breach, initiation of foreclosure proceedings. He shot to his feet, muttered something to Melanie about an urgent call, and bolted from the ballroom, white as paper. The second bomb went off more quietly. Mrs. Davenport, platinum hair immaculate, local power incarnate, read the email on her phone. She frowned, rose, glided between tables, and stopped beside Melanie. Darling Melanie, she cooed, sugar over ice. A small hiccup. Your family's contribution, your father has withdrawn it. Melanie went still. Withdrawn? There must be some mistake. Oh, I don't think so, Mrs. Davenport said, casting a brisk glance around the room. This email is quite clear. All like so maiden a nesting that. The rumor didn't explode. It flowed table to table, a whispering flame you could feel but not see. Vance pulled the pledge. Something's wrong at Chad's firm. I heard. Frank described the room to me later. No one looked at the girl with anger, Arthur. Worse, they looked at her with cool, calculating pity. They were reprising her. Under the weight of 100 eyes, Melanie fled. She found Chad in the parking lot, pacing like a caged animal, barking into his phone. What's happening, Chad? She demanded. He turned, and in the club's neon wash, she saw a stranger, his face twisted by fear and rage. What's happening? Your father, that old man, he ruined us. The bank froze everything. We're finished, do you get it? The house, all of it. The play was over. Her denial shattered. Every warning from her father, every doubt she'd pressed flat, stood in front of her now in the shape of a man coming apart. Melanie stood rooted in the lot, emerald silk absurd against the ruin. Their little kingdom had fallen, not with an earthquake, but with 2 quiet emails. When Frank told me all of it, I felt no triumph, only a hollow space where satisfaction might have been. I demolished the faulty structure. What remained was an empty lot and the rubble that needed clearing. A week after the gala, Melanie came by. She came alone, driving the BMW that now felt like a gaudy extravagance. She wore jeans and a plain t-shirt, looked exhausted, older by 10 years. The flawless makeup was gone, leaving the bruised crescents under her eyes exposed. She didn't ring the bell. I saw her through the window, standing on the porch, staring at her shoes, as if gathering the courage to knock. In the end, I opened the door for her. We said nothing. I stepped aside and she came in. We sat in the living room, the room where my wife used to read to her when she was little. The silence was awkward, heavy. I kicked him out, Melanie said at last, her voice rough. He's staying with a friend. The bank sealed the house. They gave us a week to get our personal things. I only nodded. Nothing in that surprised me. Are you happy now? She asked. Not accusatory, just bone-deep tired. No, I said, honestly. There's nothing joyful about tearing down structure, even when it's rotten from the inside. There's only necessity. Then she began to talk. It came not as anger, but as a sad, unspooling confession. She told me about the doubts she'd ignored, the questions she hadn't dared ask. She admitted she'd always known, somewhere deep down, that their life was too perfect, that Chad's success came too easily. I knew, she whispered, looking at her hands. Somewhere in there, I knew it was all too good to be true. I just didn't want to see it. Pretending was easier. For the first time, I didn't see an ambitious, shallow woman. I saw a frightened girl who had built a beautiful house on weak footing and was now watching it collapse around her. I listened until she was done. My anger had long since burned away. Only a heavy sadness remained. My fight was with Chad with his lies. Melanie was collateral damage. When she fell silent, I stood, went to my desk, and took out a small slip of paper. I'd written it a few days earlier. On it were an address in Wilmington and the name, Sarah Jennings. I came back and handed it to Melanie. Truth isn't just about money, Mel, I said gently. If you really want to start over, if you want to build on solid ground this time, maybe begin by understanding the full cost of his lies. This wasn't a weapon to hurt Chad. It was a tool to help Melanie heal. I could have told her myself, but that would be my story. By letting her discover it on her own, I gave her the power to face the truth in her own way. She looked at the paper, face unreadable. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took it. This was my last test for her. Would she face the hardest truth? Would she have the courage to look at the final, ugliest rubble of her broken marriage? The house is gone, I said, my voice low. The money is gone. That life is over. I met my daughter's eyes. But the foundation I gave you, the one inside you that's still there, honesty, decency, what your mother and I taught you, is still there, even if it's been buried. If you want to build again. Melanie didn't speak. She just nodded, folded the slip of paper, and slipped it into her pocket. She stood, walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back. I'm sorry, Dad, she said. And I knew she wasn't just apologizing for doubting me. She was apologizing for everything. I closed the door. The war was truly over. The weight of my anger was gone. No joy, just relief. The lot had been cleared. Now the only question left was whether anyone had the courage to begin building on it again. The crumpled slip of paper sat in Melanie's glove box. For 3 days, a small, unexploded bomb. She knew what she had to do, but fear kept her pinned in place. Fear of what she'd see. Fear of facing the last, sharpest shard of her broken marriage. On Saturday morning, she woke with no choice left. Uncertainty was worse than any painful truth. She pulled on jeans, skipped makeup, and started the 2-hour drive to Wilmington. A dozen times on the interstate, she almost turned around, back toward the safety of denial. But she kept going. The address led her to a modest apartment complex, identical balconies, neat postage stamp lawns, a world away from hers. She parked across the street and just sat there, heart pounding against her ribs. Then she saw them. A young woman, about her age, hair in a ponytail, a tire set to her face, pushing a little boy on the small swing set by the shared courtyard. The boy was laughing, a clear, bell-bright sound. From a distance, Melanie could see his blonde hair, and she knew. She knew. She sat in the car nearly 20 minutes. She rehearsed this moment 100 times, an argument, accusations, tears. But when she finally stepped out and crossed the street, she felt only a strange emptiness. The woman Sarah looked up as Melanie approached. She didn't look surprised. Maybe she'd been waiting for this day. She stopped the swing. Hello, Sarah said, voice steady, not hostile, just tired. Hi, Melanie answered, barely above a whisper. She didn't know what to say. All the angry speeches she'd written in her head fell to pieces. Sarah broke the silence. You came to see if he's here? A bitter smile flickered. Don't worry, he isn't. He hasn't been here in months. And rude, she studied Melanie, a clear, level look. He sells dreams, doesn't he? That's his one real talent. He paints you a picture of a castle, and you don't realize you're living in a house of cards until it comes down. In that moment, Melanie didn't see an enemy, a third woman. She saw a mirror. Another woman who had believed promises and been left to sweep up the wreckage. The boy, Melanie began and couldn't finish. His name is Leo, Sarah said, her voice softening as she looked at him. He's a good kid. None of this is his fault. Melanie looked at Leo. He'd stopped playing and was watching her, curious. He had Chad's eyes, but in those eyes she didn't see betrayal. She saw a child, and the anger she'd been stoking hot coal in her chest suddenly cooled. It didn't blaze into forgiveness. It simply dissolved, leaving a clean, cold space. Acceptance. He promised he'd take care of us, Sarah went on, as if to herself. He promised a house, a family, but Chad's promises are like his projects. They look beautiful, and there's no foundation. Melanie stood in the afternoon sun and listened to a stranger tell a story that ran parallel to her own. She understood then that her father had been right. He hadn't handed her an address to punish her. He'd given her a way out. By showing her she wasn't the only victim, he'd freed her from her private shame. She didn't stay long. There was nothing left to say. The truth stood there bare and inarguable. I'm sorry, Melanie said, and meant it. I'm sorry for everything he did to you. Sarah just nodded. Me too. Melanie turned and walked away. She didn't cry on the drive back. She felt a frightening clarity, like a fever finally breaking. The life she'd known was truly over. The house was gone. The husband, gone. The illusion, shattered. All that remained was herself alone, standing on an empty lot. And for the first time, that thought didn't scare her. It felt almost like relief. I bet 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past without clicking. Like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you? And where are you listening? 6 months later, summer gave way to fall, then winter, and now the first shy hints of spring. On a busy downtown corner sits a small flower shop called The Wild Petal. Inside, Melanie is easing tulips into a glass vase. Her hand no longer wears a 3-carat diamond. Instead, it carries a dusting of soil and tiny scratches from rose thorns. She lives in a rented apartment above the shop, a small space with old furniture she's repainted herself. Everything is modest, and everything is hers. When a customer comes in, she looks up and smiles. It isn't the practiced, dazzling smile from before. This one is smaller, a little tired at the corners, but it reaches her eyes. It's real. 20 miles away, in a cluttered garage that smells of sawdust and oil, Arthur bends over a workbench. He's turned the garage into a modest woodshop, an old pastime reclaimed. The tower blueprints are gone, replaced by sketches of keepsake boxes, stools, and picture frames. Beside him, his 9-year-old granddaughter, the eldest son's little girl, watches closely. See, Lucy, he says, warm and low. You send with the grain, always with the grain. That's how you bring out its beauty, not fight it. She nods, solemn, takes a piece of sandpaper, and copies his strokes. The shop bell rings. Melanie steps in with 2 paper cups of coffee. No designer dress today, just jeans and a thick sweater. Thought you could use this, she says, handing him one. Thank you, he answers. They don't say much. She sits on a stool and quietly watches him and Lucy work. No awkward apologies, no heavy autopsies of the past. Everything that needed saying has been said. What remains is this easy, quiet, the simple presence of 2 adults, 2 survivors, learning how to be together again. After a while, Lucy shows Melanie the small wooden box she's making. Grandpa says it's walnut, she says proudly. Melanie takes it, fingers smoothing the satin surface. It's beautiful, sweetheart. When it's time to go, Melanie stands. I need to get back to the shop. Drive safe, Arthur says. She pauses in the doorway. Thank you, Dad, she says softly. Arthur understands she's not just thanking him for the coffee. It's thanks for the hard lesson, the second chance, for not giving up on her, even when he tore down her world. He only nods. You're welcome, kiddo. After she leaves, Arthur turns back to the bench. He lifts a piece of walnut he's been working and studies its complicated grain, dark and light lines twisting together, telling a story. The grain keeps a record, he thinks, of pressure, of struggle, of survival. The most beautiful boards are often the ones with the most complicated history. He plugs in the sander, and its hum fills the room. He doesn't build skyscrapers anymore. He's building small, honest things. A wooden box, a relationship, a new foundation. And for the first time in a long time, Arthur Vance, the architect, feels he's making something that will truly last.